But we were in the prayer room, and as I'm worshiping and I'm experiencing God's presence, there's a sweet communion. I began to have a vision. I began to see. I've talked through this before, but having a vision it's not a super ecstatic experience that no one else can have. It's the type of thing actually that in your inner man, when the Lord speaks, you'll see pictures. When the Lord communicates with you, often he'll do so in picture form, because literally a word, 1,000 words cannot describe a picture that the Lord gives. He gives you one little glimpse and it means so much. And so I was in a time of prayer, and he began to show me this picture. I was standing on a beach, and there the Lord was in front of me, and he had his back to me. And he turned around and he looked at me and he beckoned me and he said, "Follow me." And then he began to walk, and he walks right out on the water. And I remember the moment of hesitation in this, because I'm like, "Yes, Jesus." I think this happens to us. We're like, "Yes, Lord." And then he does something that's impossible. "I'll follow you to the ends of the earth." But then he's like, "Now I want you to do something you can't do." And so he walks out on the water, and I remember this experience, feeling that sort of like, "Oh, I don't know, Lord." But I could tell he's getting distance on me, so I better keep going if I'm going to, so just, okay, let's do this, And there I was, walking out on the sea with him. And the waters were perfectly calm, glassy, reflecting the sky. And it was, we're walking towards the horizon, and he's walking. He's not, never mind me, he's going. And there I am, attempting to keep up with him and feeling and understanding that the Lord is doing things in our day. He's at work, and he's invited us to participate, but it requires that you actually follow. And so there he was, he's walking out, and I'm walking with him, and we're walking towards the horizon, and I can see, I'm looking towards the horizon past the Lord as he's walking. Again, it's a visionary experience in a time of prayer, and I'm looking at the horizon, and there on the horizon there's this light that begins to emanate, and it's so strong and powerful, I knew this light could not be earthly type of light. I'm looking at it, and suddenly it comes to me, I realize, I'm looking at a cloud. A brilliant cloud. Light is emanating from this thing that's beyond. And I'm looking at it, and this small cloud is on the horizon, and I see the shadow of a person, a figure walking towards me. And as they're walking on the water towards me, they're approaching, and suddenly it occurs to me that it's my mother, who passed away when I was, young. And she's walking towards us, and she got from about here to the back of the sanctuary. I can clearly see her. And the Lord is standing there, and the Lord looks at me, and then he looks at her as if she has something to say. And she says, "Take courage, son. We're praying for you." And then the experience is over. You have so many questions at this point. Like, wait, hold a second. The sermon this morning is intentional in that I'm opening a door, and I'm going to show you how to get to the door. I'm going to walk you through the scriptures to come to this threshold, and then I'm going to sneak up behind you and kick you through the door. I'm not going to attempt to answer all your questions. I don't have the answers. This morning is meant to open a door and to invite us into a reality that goes beyond. I talked with a few people this week, actually several, I had small conversations with, and they were expressing to me weariness, heaviness, a sense of like, man, I'm tired, I feel fatigued. Something about this season just took it out of them. And so there's not a lot of energy for extra things, not a lot of energy to say yes to things that they normally would be energized for and excited about saying yes to. It just wasn't there in the tank. And I was talking to them and realized like that phrase, like heavy, burdensome, weary, requires an explanation. It requires an addressing. It's not something that you can stay in or sustain very long. If a load is very heavy, you're not going to be able to carry it very long. And the Lord, he comes to us and he allows us to intersect and to come into connection with people's burdens, come into connection with the reality of this day where there is heaviness in the atmosphere. There's stuff to get done that's difficult. And he invites us to care, but asks us not to carry. Because he wants to carry it with us. He has a yoke. You know what a yoke is? It was a piece of wood they would place on the back of oxen in order to pull something that is heavy, the load. And he says to you, he says to me, he says to us, you must be courageous because the load actually is difficult, but I need you to learn from me because I am humble and my yoke is easy and my burden is light. What he shows us is difficult. The assignment might be heavy to you. If you look at it, you go, Lord, how can I ever? How could we ever? But he says, with you, it's not possible, but with us, it is possible. Whenever we have a load that's heavy, whenever we feel weary or burdened or we're feeling disconnected from presence, there's a tension at hand because the reality is that he never leaves us, he never forsakes us. On his end of things, nothing changes. Are you alive? He's with you. He's with you in it. So when the burden gets heavy, I know it's not on his end of things. When the burden gets wearisome, when what I'm supposed to be doing, suddenly I don't have energy and I'm like, oh, Lord, my prayer often is this, oh, God, give me grace to sustain today. Help me, Lord. Like those kinds of prayers. But like in Jesus' words, this is Matthew 11, come to me all who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. That's a good prayer. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. In other words, there's something for us to change about how we're doing things. The way he does things, he says, I am gentle and I'm humble. You will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So here's the deal. Every time I begin to feel a weariness, a heaviness, where the assignment or something feels like, man, I don't know if I can keep sustaining what you've asked me to do, Lord. I know that the issue isn't on his end, that I'm out of alignment with carrying the yoke. Something has to shift in how I'm approaching something. I'm praying, God, give me strength, give me extra grace, give me what I need in order to do this. And he's saying to you, hey, how about just humble yourself and admit you don't know how to do it? How about learn from me because it's actually not heavy. I already did it all. If it's heavy, it means you're carrying it wrong.